This episode of Inside Games is brought to you by Wealthfront. Go to invest.wealthfront.com/inside-games to get your first $5,000 managed for free.
Welcome to Inside Games, the only gaming news show brave enough to swim in the wake of other shows with much, much larger budgets.
Speak for yourself, Bruce. I'm here in sunny Las Vegas, and let me tell you, I've been hitting the streets, I've been pounding the pavement. I'm talking to somebody that can get us an orchestra for $20 and a case of light beer.
Whoa, finally! Let's go. Move over, Jeff Keighley. Make way for the Inside Games Orchestra.
What the? Skinny Pete fucked me! God damn it! Skinny Pete, I'm not, give me back my $20 and my case of Bud Light!
He's not going to. He already spent the money and drank the beer, man. It's gone. This bout of inferiority complex comes to you courtesy of the Game Awards, the 2021 version of which broadcast on December 9th. And for a show called the Game Awards, had surprising lack of Game Awards.
Yeah, if you were thinking the same thing, it's not just you. Out of the show's 3-hour and 40-minute runtime, only 38 minutes were dedicated to presenting awards and acceptance speeches.
The 3-hour and 40-minute, is that with the pre-show?
Yes, but they gave awards during the pre-show, so...
Oh, good point.
Because they both have promo trailers and awards, it's just a different host.
So that's only 17.2% of the show, which was otherwise filled with announcements and promotions for upcoming games, not to mention extended promotional segments for multiple movies and TV series, which are not video games.
Conversely, the show packed in 55 game announcements or update trailers. Bizarrely, the difference gets a little fuzzy there. Some of which were honestly hot fire.
We are hardly the first to notice how advertising and promotion heavy the Game Awards has been, or is becoming, and this year's production is even farther down the path.
And there's reason for that, and it's not greed, believe it or not. The games industry has shifted in a fundamental way in the last 10 years or so, which means a lot of promotional traffic has shifted from E3, where it used to be, to the Game Awards, where it seems to be now.
Yeah, we'll get to the industry analysis in a bit, but first, rundown of the winners. So just like the Game Awards, we understand that people probably don't want to sit through lists of winners, so we'll try and compress this a little bit.
Yeah, Game of the Year, the big boy went to Hazelight Studios' It Takes Two, the novel co-op game that honestly seemed like a kind of a bit of a dark horse in that category against titles like Resident Evil Village and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart.
I thought Village deserved it, but you know what? It Takes Two is a great game too. Whether it was a factor or not, this did give more open mic time to It Takes Two director Joseph Fares, who infamously said, "Fuck the Oscars," during a promotional segment for Hazelight's 2018 game, A Way Out, and that was at the 2017 Game Awards.
That's weird. Like, it's weird for somebody to get on mic at the Game Awards and trash another awards show, given that this Game Awards had multiple promotional segments for movies and TV series. Seems a little weird to get on a high horse when, anyway.
Well, he trashed it in 2017 when maybe it didn't have as many of those things, right? And now it does.
Yeah, that's a fair point, sure.
Arcane Studios' Deathloop took home Best Game Direction and Best Art Direction, while Best Narrative went to Eidos Montreal's Guardians of the Galaxy, which is, by the way, a great game.
Fantastic, yeah. On the audio side of things, Near Replicant version 2. That's the 2021 remake of the original 2010 release, won Best Score. Best Audio Design was awarded to Playground Games' Forza Horizon 5.
Housemarque's Returnal won Best Action Game, which is great, since the studio has been quietly cranking out awesome games for more than 20 years.
And Final Fantasy XIV won Best Community Support, its first official The Game Awards Game Award in its decade of operation, and yes, that's only being mentioned explicitly because of me right now.
But Final Fantasy XIV had its moment this year, Lawrence, so I feel like this was the year to get that award, right?
Yeah, it had its glow up, and part of me is a little cynical because if it weren't for the notoriety, it probably wouldn't have won an award. But guess what? That's how these things work.
Out of all the awards, Psychonauts 2 emerges as the biggest snub of the evening, winning no awards, despite being nominated in 5 categories. We're going to put that game right next to Doom Eternal on the Games Media Doesn't Deserve You shelf, because Psychonauts 2 was fantastic. I played about 10 hours of it, loved it.
Yeah, incredible game, hit all kinds of marks. It's just kind of frustrating that it didn't get anything. Again, like Eternal, another fascinating and well-made game that just didn't take home any awards, but guess what? Yeah. I love it, and you love it. We all love it. But enough of that. We know that people don't watch Game Awards to appreciate the hard work and craft of video games. We want to salivate over all the games we can't play yet for some reason.
And like we said before, the Game Awards really delivered on those goods. Here's our list of the bigger and more surprising reveals during the show.
But first, a word from our sponsor, Wealthfront.
If you think it's hard to buy a PlayStation 5 or 3080 right now, wait until you try to retire. That's right. If you want to be swimming in sweet video games long into old age, the time is now to start planning for the future. And luckily, our sponsor Wealthfront is here to make that easy and approachable. This should go without saying, but you can't rely on your company or the U.S. government to provide anything close to a living retirement fund. So either you get Elon to tweet about your crypto, or you do it like everyone else and invest. Lawrence and I have both tried various 401k and investment services, and I can say from experience that Wealthfront is one of the easiest and cleanest services to get started. Then you sign up, take a short quiz to determine your risk tolerance. They ask you stuff like, quote, if you lost 10% of your investment in a day, what would you do? End quote, stuff like that. The service gauges your responses and recommends collections of investments that match your risk tolerance. You can manually tweak the investment ratios or control it granularly if you want, but the goal is to get you started with an investment plan that won't freak you out. Then you set up a monthly deposit and let Wealthfront do the rest. They have software that rebalances your investment slate as the market changes to make sure it's still in bounds for your risk tolerance, meaning you can just kick back, watch your money work for you. Wealthfront uses software for another great benefit too, automated tax loss harvesting. Basically, when an eligible ETF in your portfolio declines in value, they can tactically sell it to help offset other gains and reduce your taxable gains. Wealthfront says this covers their advisory fee, which is 0.25%, 3 times over for clients using their classic recommended portfolio. So not only does software management balance your risk load, but it also can help maximize your tax savings. And of course, we have a special promo. You can get your first $5,000 managed for free for life by going to invest.wealthfront.com/insidegames. All you need is a $500 deposit to get started and lock down that PlayStation 28 when it hits in 2079 or whatever. Once more, that's invest.wealthfront.com/insidegames, or hit that link in the description. Hey, thank you, Wealthfront, for sponsoring Inside Games. All right, so we got our first look at Homeworld 3, the next entry in an RTS franchise that experienced a long period of dormancy between Homeworld 2 in 2003 and the prequel, Homeworld Deserts of Karak in 2016. The original is a cult classic at this point, remembered fondly for its melancholy tone and basically being the first 3D space RTS.
Thirsty Suitors from Outer Loop Games features turn-based battles, skateboarding, and cooking. That's the golden trinity of video game mini games. The game is published by Annapurna Interactive, who has cultivated a reputation for finding progressive projects after publishing games like What Remains of Edith Finch, Sayonara Wild Hearts, and The Outer Wilds.
Evil West looks like a game straight out of 2002 in the very best way, which kind of makes sense since it's coming from Flying Wild Hog, the same developers as 2013's Shadow Warrior. Have you ever wanted to be Van Helsing punching zombies with an electro-mechanized punchy hand? We don't need you to answer here because we already know your answer. It's yes.
Hellblade 2 had the longest showing in the entire show with an over 6-minute demo featuring a creepy, decaying flesh golem thing in a cave. Mostly bringing it up here to remind you to play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice if you haven't. It's 6 to 8 hours. It's a solid evening. It's on Game Pass, and if you play it with headphones, it will freak you the fuck out.
Yeah, Lawrence recommends you try it. Even better if you're mentally enhanced.
And next up, Quantic Dream, the masterminds behind Heavy Rain, and more recently, Detroit Become Human announced their new project, Star Wars Eclipse. It's got Star Wars in the name, and it's got an oil man like Dune, so it's got it all.
Many have anticipated the North American release of the 2019 South Korean action RPG MMO Lost Ark, which finally has a release date, February 11th, 2022.
Remedy Games creative director Sam Lake attended the show in person to discuss the long-awaited sequel to 2010's Alan Wake, revealing that the sequel will be a whole-ass survival horror game. Unlike the original, it's more of an action game. So yeah, they're going balls deep.
And then Slitterhead, which was my favorite thing to say over and over and over when I was hosting that Twitch show. It sounds like a slur, but it's not. It is a new game from Kiichiro Toyama, director and writer of the 1999 survival horror classic Silent Hill. Series composer Akira Yamaoka returns to provide score for the new game too. So the Dream Team is back, and they're making Slitterhead.
It sounds like I'm getting away with murder every time I say it out loud. Speaking of music, Beat Saber's getting a Lady Gaga music pack. That rules.
That's right.
That's pretty much it.
Cuphead 2 is a sequel to Cuphead, but it's notable for being the only music performance of the night that was not promoting Arcane.
I'm still a little bitter that they bent a Bastion performance into promoting Arcane. It's only like 30 seconds of Bastion. Couldn't you have played? Anyway. Sonic Frontiers is great because everyone loves Sonic the Hedgehog. It's the first next/this gen Sonic game from Sonic Team, the brilliant minds behind 2014 Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, and 2017 Sonic Forces. The trailer and title heavily imply that this Sonic will be an open world game, And given Sonic Team's legacy, that should be quite a spectacle.
We got our first look at Rocksteady Studios' Suicide Squad, which looked awesome and is hotly anticipated after the work on the Batman Arkham series. The trailer captured the nihilistic, self-destructive spirit of the property, but after playing Marvel's Avengers, it's kind of tough to get excited about a 4-player open city co-op action game. I mean, I don't think it'll be a games as a service, right, Lawrence?
I hope not.
Still, of course, Rocksteady's work's been nothing but superb. So we're hoping this will provide an experience that Avengers did not. I think it will.
I think it will too. It's been in development for a while. So that tells me that they've had the time to sort of iterate, make something that works, and then build on top of that. Versus Avengers, which is just like, we gotta release something. That's kind of what it felt like. Forspoken is the next game from Square Enix's Luminous Productions, who previously made Final Fantasy XV. Which makes sense, because this game looks quite a bit like Final Fantasy XV, at least at a glance. The game features Frey Holland, who was teleported from New York City to the fantastic world of Athia, or Athia, one of those two. And of course, gets a ton of cool magic abilities in the process, and a cool looking cloak.
Out of all the reveals, the Inside Games Deep Cut Award goes to Space Marine 2, the surprise sequel to 2011's Warhammer 40k Space Marine. The original was planned as a trilogy, indicated by the original's sorta cliffhanger ending, but was scuttled when the previous game's publisher THQ went out of business. Focus Entertainment assumed publishing rights, with Saber Interactive developing.
DokeV showed even more creepy toddlers dancing, if that's your thing.
It's not. And Crossfire X is notable because Lawrence is a Remedy simp. That's right, the same studio that made Max Payne and Alan Wake is also making a high adrenaline political action thriller, which is great, since Ubisoft really seems to have forgotten the Tom Clancy's brand for anything that isn't remakes or games as a service. And Crossfire looks pretty cool, in my opinion.
This is the studio that basically brought bullet time to video games. So
yeah,
you can bet your ass there's going to be a few slow-mo door breach sequences. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, and next up, Elden Ring! Elden Ring!
Elden Ring!
Elden Ring!
Elden Ring!
They had a pot. They had Potsy, or whatever his name is.
Arc Raiders didn't lack for style, debuting what will be a free-to-play co-op game dripping in 70s sci-fi aesthetic. The game releases sometime in 2022, and while you really can't go wrong with Robin, it's a little weird to use Dancing on My Own for a co-op game. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, solid groove, but I guess the lyrics don't quite make sense.
Also, Lawrence, by the way, this is the game from the developers that left DICE a few years ago to make their own game. So hopefully this will be a really cool game from the developers of Battlefield.
Finally, Matrix stars Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss fulfilled their presumably contractual obligations by telling us about The Matrix Awakens, a free-to-download tech demo for Xbox Series X. I don't know if it's available for S, to be honest. And PlayStation 5, which recreates scenes from the 1999 movie in near photorealistic quality before breaking the fourth wall to complain about marketing and PR obligations.
And that's not even all of them, just whatever Lawrence had time to gush about before we had to record. There were a ton. Honestly, Jeff Keighley put on a great show for game reviews there.
Yeah, I had to trim the list down substantially because there were a lot of games I wanted to talk about. But as we said previously, focus of the show has clearly shifted from celebrating the releases of the previous year to promoting the products of the upcoming year. And like we said, there is a reason for that. Yes, we finally arrived at that games industry analysis portion we mentioned a while ago.
You may have noticed that nearly all the games that announced release dates landed in February or March. There's a reason for that, and it has everything to do, this is really boring, with fiscal reporting.
And here's the boring part. So companies report their revenue to investors on a quarterly and yearly basis, and it probably goes without saying, they want those reports to look as good as possible.
Fiscal years do not align with calendar years. Most companies' fiscal years run from April to March, rather than January to December. That means if a company's fiscal year ends in March, any revenue earned before the end of March counts toward the previous year.
So in this case, any games released in February or March 2022 count towards fiscal 2021.
In the past, game publishers wouldn't necessarily use that window because all the game buying would happen during the holiday season, which means you released in October or November to get all your sales. Nowadays, adults with disposable income buy games year-round, like we do, meaning releasing high-profile titles in February is no longer the death sentence it used to be.
As a result, lots of games publishers are stretching into February or March to give their developers a little more time to refine their products. Effectively, February is now the hot season for game releases, or at least for all the ones that needed just a little more love and slipped out of the holiday release season.
That's right, and that's why the Game Awards, situated at the end of the year, is a perfect marketing beat for those releases. Get tons of eyeballs, and conveniently finds itself as the last big marketing event for the New Year's big releases. That used to be E3, but that's in the middle of the year.
Yeah. And it made sense again when everything launched in October, November. You got E3 in June. It's right there. But now it's too far away. To be fair, the holiday season is still very important, and games do move a lot of units in the holiday season. So E3 is still important. But now there's basically a second E3. It's not really that the Game Awards is a new E3. It's a second sort of debut thing. So now we have these two beats. We have holiday and then Q1 of the year when all these games come out, and marketing kind of situates around those dates.
If you want a more austere Game Awards show, just watch the DICE Awards or the BAFTAs or whatever. Clearly, the Game Awards at the end of the year is meant to be awards, but also lots of marketing and pushing for new games that come out. And that's okay. Yeah.
Neither Bruce nor I are trying to sit on our high horses and be like, the Game Awards are bad because they're not respectful enough, whatever. We both get hyped for Game Awards too, and we kind of understand, like as media producers, I think especially, we kind of understand Jeff's desire to put on a show filled with the things people want to see. It's a balancing act, and that's all it is.
Lawrence, who got robbed?
Well, I mean, Psychonauts 2 got robbed, but I got my own beefs. And disclosure time, again, my partner works for CD Projekt Red. But I gotta admit, kind of fucking weird that a re-release got best score. A re-release. Like, yes, they re-recorded all the music, they added new tracks, great. And Nier music is very good, it's great. Not imputing that. But Cyberpunk had a whole score that was entirely original. It had motifs that reflected the narrative, like baked into the music. And it had a whole lineup of Grand Theft Auto style music stations that were entirely original music. And all of the bands represented on those radio stations were fake bands that were remade in the lore of the world. Nier didn't do anything like that. No other game in the category did.
You're correct, Lawrence. And let me tell you this. When I was watching, Lawrence and I were miles apart when we watched the show. I wasn't anywhere near him. I didn't talk to him about it. I thought exactly the same thing about exactly the same category. I was like, why didn't Cyberpunk win best score? Like, this was easily the best score of the year. So if any award, it probably should have won that one, but people hate Cyberpunk, so you know.
I mean, Bruce, yeah, you kind of hit on it. It's in the same way that it, I think at this point it's a little eye-rolly to eye-roll at the Game Awards. I think it's also a little eye-rolly to ignore political factors and how people vote for the Game Awards. So I'm not stupid, I get it. Cyberpunk is radioactive, at least right now. And that's a bit frustrating because there's a lot of amazing work in that. It'd be nice if someday it were acknowledged, but them's the breaks, man. That's art. People are not always going to appreciate good work in its time. And yeah, I said that about Cyberpunk just now. So get mad at me, but I think time will prove me right.
Like, there's no way Cyberpunk's going to win Best RPG. I was like, but score, right? Score. It had the best score by far, and it didn't. So, also, it was kind of hollow for Jeff to get up there and make generic statements about how discrimination is bad, and then feature multiple promo segments from Facebook and Riot Games and Quantic Dream. This is just like, yeah, it's weird because I can totally see where Jeff is coming from on this. It's like, it's good that he mentioned it at the top of the show, but also super weird that then they feature a bunch of stuff. It's tough. This is tough.
Yeah, that's another one of those. I could get up and say how one-dimensional all that stuff is. The non-meaning of all of the things he said, the fact that he was breaking out the presidential thumbs, he used his dad voice, and it certainly felt very evocative, but nothing was actually said. The whole, like, aside from the categories they're mentioned in, these companies won't be at the show, and then everyone reported that as some revelatory thing, even though Blizzard doesn't announce anything outside of BlizzCon, so it doesn't mean anything. I don't know.
Yeah.
The man is in a position of having to say what people want to hear, and that's what he did. He's been towing a political line for a while, and as the figurehead for an award show, he said what he had to say without pissing off any of his business partners or any of the audience. So he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He did what he had to do. It's just, that's human nature, and that's how these things go. But yeah, when it comes, like, an award getting, or a game getting snubbed is one thing. When it starts dabbling in actual, like, real politics and issues that really matter to people, that's when it starts to cut a little deeper. And I don't know what the solution is there. It'd be cool to actually take a stance and actually say no to a paying advertising partner for moral reasons. But Nobody got rich off of saying no to good money. So
it was interesting because I was like, what would the solution be here? Because it's like, if you say no to that, then are you hurting the the good employees at those companies? If you say no to those dollars, like, I don't know. I really don't know. So that's again, we can talk about it with some nuance here on this episode or on this show, rather than screaming about, Jeff didn't stand up for anything. But I just don't know what the solution is there.
Yeah, and it gets even messier when you consider that for all the game developers that did win awards, it's possible there's problems there we don't even know about. So
yeah,
it's messy, dog. Who's
it really?
But
it really is.
Personally, at least, and Bruce, I'm sure you're there too. As media producers ourselves, we can only celebrate the execution of the show because it was a pretty amazing production.
Did a great job with it. Here's to 2022's The Game Awards. That will be 5 hours long.
May Lord have mercy on your bladder if you're in the live audience.